we had an open door in the White House to people who criticize us and said we should do something different. And we had an open door to all the NGOs. And I remember being in Jake's office and literally being lectured by a very senior international NGO official, I won't name, about everything happening for about 20 minutes. And what struck us was that the word that was never mentioned in the narrative of what was going on, Hamas was not mentioned once. Like Hamas gets written out of this whole thing.
As though they have any agency. Like
even like right now, Dan. I mean, right now, I want this war to end, okay? This war has to come to a close. Like Israel has to think about getting out of this conflict as it did in Lebanon in a way that leaves it stronger and does not just have an endless campaign in Gaza going nowhere. We have to get to an endpoint, okay? And we have to get to an endpoint that can leave a foundation for something better. And frankly, that means Hamas cannot remain in control of Gaza, security control of Gaza. The scenes out of Gaza right now are horrific. There is an offer on the table. There's a readiness to write them out of the story. There was a vote down here in New York at the UN Security Council today, once again, and the U.S. vetoed it. That again, doesn't mention Hamas. It doesn't.
Calls for a ceasefire.
It calls for ceasefire, permanent ceasefire. Permanent ceasefire, by the way, permanent ceasefire means Hamas is basically the controlling authority in Gaza, and then forget about, if you care about two states, anything else. There's no way forward there.
So your point is, with all these players you were dealing with internationally that was pressuring the administration, pressuring Israel, they operated like Hamas had no agency, like just Hamas wasn't a character in the story. This was only for Israel to solve with pressure from the United States.
That this awful situation could be solved by the United States telling Israel to stop,
right,
or cutting off arms or whatever. And it's worth, and we went through every scenario of thinking, first of all, a president cannot snap his fingers and tell an Israeli prime minister who is facing a significant threat to his or her country. It doesn't really work like that. Historically, it hasn't worked like that. So that's, I think, just a very simplistic view. I think an American president has significant influence and ability to kind of direct the course of events in a certain way, but to basically say you have to stop, and especially after October 7th, I think it's just naive and not realistic. And then the one we always got was cut off weapons. I believe strongly, and I know this because, I read a lot of information at the time. I know how adversaries of Israel think. If that ever happens, I think you'll have a much longer bloody war in the Middle East, because the adversaries of Israel are waiting for that moment, and they're not going to say, "Oh, okay, Americans just are cutting off weapons from Israel, so now maybe we'll stop and have peace."
Right.
You'll have the opposite, and I believe me, I want this. Everybody wants peace.